How's it going, guys? And Team of the Centaur Yang here. Now, as you can tell from the title of this video, how you can predict your maximum drug-free muscular potential. First off, a big thank you to Mr. Casey Butts, PhD, who put in 6 years of work into data analysis, compiling all the data from drug-free champions of the past and present, making this possible for me to make this video for you all. Secondly, I'd like to thank all the individuals who put in the time to take all of their measurements for me, give me all of this information. You didn't have to, but you did, so thank you very much. So guys, just so you can check out Casey's information, it is in the description box below. Also is a link to the Google Excel spreadsheet where I have everyone's information that I was able to get from them. So all the bodybuilders' information current, and I have information there from drug-free champions of the past. I've also included another sheet below for anyone who may want to send me their information. Instructions on how to take measurements at the different points on your body and how to use the calculator. If you want to and you're a natural bodybuilder lifting more than 3 or 4 years, go ahead and send me your information and I can see if I can add it to the table. Now guys, first off, I want to tell you that I do not want you thinking in black and white terms about this video. In YouTube, there is a big thing going on with the natty not natty hunt. This is not meant to say who's natty and who's not. This is meant for you. This is meant to try and give you an idea of what you can potentially gain and how you can potentially look with years of training underneath your belt. As we all know, a lot of famous YouTubers are taking the FFMI and putting it in absolutes, saying that, oh, if this person has this FFMI, they're not natural. This is not meant to do that, okay? So please, don't think in black and white terms. Which is the reason why I got more data than necessary to give you guys, just so you can understand the backgrounds of these individuals that I'm about to mention in this video. Also, for all of you guys watching this that have maybe smaller bone structure, smaller wrists, or smaller ankles, I've compiled data in the spreadsheet of people that also have, smaller bone structure, just so you can go out and take a look at what these individuals have been able to achieve with the amount of years lifting under their belt, and so you can understand that you can still achieve a very good looking aesthetic physique while not having the biggest bone structure. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of the table. So if you haven't already, I want you to go down to the link below, click that table in the Google Excel spreadsheet and take a look at it. So now you notice that there's a key. I have a key for small wrists, small ankles, large wrists, large ankles, and very large wrists and very large ankles. To the right of this key, there's an equation for average wrist and ankle girth. So what I deemed smaller than average wrists was based on the average wrist girth, for example. If the individual had wrists 3% smaller, okay, or greater than the average, I deemed them to have small wrists. So, for large wrists and ankles, if the individual had wrists and ankles that measured in at between 3 and 6% larger than their average wrist and ankle girths for their height, they were deemed to have large wrists and ankles. So you can see where I'm going with this. Now, if the individual had very large wrists or very large ankles, they had wrists and ankles 6% or more greater than the average wrist and ankle girth for an individual of their height. Now, as you can see, I've color-coded it, and also for anyone that had averages greater, as in large or very large, I've color-coded it, and I've also put the percentage to the right of that girth, just so you know what percent more they were than the average, which will give you a good idea as you go ahead and interpret the table below. So, in the table, I wanted to put a little bit more into it just because I didn't want us to, like I said, think black and white. So I had the individual's age, their current weight, their typical peaked contest weight, current estimated body fat, which is actually very important, we'll talk more about that later, height, wrist and ankle girth, of course, years spent primarily lifting, and then years spent lifting and any other rigorous physical activity. So let's quickly touch on age, years lifting, and then years of rigorous physical activity. I'm going to give you a few examples real quick because this is the reason I did it. First off, Evan Godby, the giant over here. Now, Evan's been lifting for, I believe, 13 years, and he's had 18 years of physical activity. The guy did karate since he was, I believe, 12? Yeah, 12 years old. And in karate, he had a lot of body weight exercises, a lot of things that actually put on a bit of muscle when he was younger that led him into weight training. And obviously, if you have an athletic career before you start weight training, things like being able to engage your lats when you're lifting, or these little things will give you a slight advantage as you head in and start working out. A few more quick examples are Chris Elkins. And Chris Elkins actually has below average wrist and ankle girth, but he's been spending 3.5 years in the gym, but 15 plus years with physical activity. Now, the guy was in the Marines, and they had a lot of rigorous physical activity in the Marines. He took up rock climbing. His history is pretty extensive, but he's only been lifting for 3.5 years seriously, and he has an amazing physique. He's actually a natural pro. But looking at Elkins, looking at his physique, you wouldn't, if he told you he's only been lifting for 3.5 years, you wouldn't really think about his past before lifting, which has played a role in the way he's able to put on muscle at this point. And then you guys know myself, I've been playing soccer since I was 6 years old, and we did a lot of different training for that. So that has aided me in my growth. And then we can look at someone like Alberto Nunez, who I believe he's been lifting for 15 years, but he has 25 years of activity because he played a lot of different sports, which also goes into his development as a bodybuilder. I want to touch on body fat real quick. And the reason why I had an estimated body fat percentage, and this is estimated. Remember guys, body fat percentage estimation isn't really super accurate, okay? So there's going to be a margin for error here. But I wanted them to give me their estimations just so we can understand why maybe potentially they had really large measurements at this point. Brian Whittaker, world champion, IFPA, Yorton Cup winner, and WNBF Worlds winner, is pretty much a few months off show, so he's still really lean. So I think his measurements are close to where they are. But someone like Lawrence To Go, who did his show about 7 or 8 months ago, is a little bit fluffier right now in his off season. Same with me. So these measurements of the actual measurements taken are taken at these body fats. So if someone is very, very close to their muscular potential, look at their body fat and maybe see, are they a little bit higher in body fat right now, or are they between 7 and 10% body fat? Now, another thing to remember, and I think this is probably a weakness of this whole thing, is that everyone took their own measurements. And that's a pretty glaring problem, right? Even though I gave them directions on how to flex, how to take their measurements, the people are probably using different measuring tape. We don't know if they measured right in the morning or if they measured in the evening after eating. You know, there's going to be a little bit of inconsistency here and there, but for the most part, the measurements are in the right area or in the right place. But just remember that there is that margin of error. Now, one thing I really want us to look at is this. If you look at the sheet and you look at, for example, world champion bodybuilder Brian Whittaker, who has below average wrist girth and fairly average ankle girth, he's been able, with 20 plus years of lifting, to get to almost the amounts given by the calculator, okay? And that's a pretty big feat. So even, remember, like I said at the beginning of the video, even if you have smaller wrists or smaller ankles, don't think, oh no, I gotta quit, I can't attain a great physique, because the world champion did it. Now, Brian Whittaker doesn't have crazy, disgusting size in any way, you know what I mean? He's not built like Cleveland Thomas. I'm not gonna talk about that, but he's not built like Cleveland Thomas. He just has a very well-structured, large physique, built with years of hard work, and he's the world champion. So, think about that before you try or want to give up on things, okay? And then there's guys like Lawrence To Go and Chris Elkins, who have smaller than average wrist and ankle girth. But when you go to their social media and you look at them during contests, Lawrence has only been lifting for 3.5 years and really has maybe 5 or 6 years of activity under his belt, but he looks extremely impressive, and he's still in his almost newbie stages of gains. So in a few years, it's going to be interesting to see what he looks like. In a few years, I'm going to update this table for what he looks like then. Now, Chris Elkins, pro natural bodybuilder, below average bone structure, great physique, and actually getting pretty close to his numbers. Think about that. Right? Think about that. He doesn't have the best genetics or the best bone girth for this, but he's doing really, really well. Now, something else to think about is the length of different individuals' muscle bellies, and I'm going to use Evan Godby as a prime example for this. Evan has very long biceps, okay? And a good way to maybe test if you have smaller muscle bellies is this. Flex your bicep, keep your elbow at 90 degrees, don't bring your elbow in, keep it at 90. Take a finger, put it here, okay? So if you put your finger in between your bicep and your elbow, and you feel like if you have a solid space there, you don't have extremely long muscle bellies, but you don't have small muscle bellies. Now, if you can legit stick two fingers comfortably, and I can't stick them too comfortably there, but if you can stick two fingers comfortably between your elbow and your bicep, or where the muscle belly ends, then you might have kind of short muscle bellies. Evan Godby is an individual whose bicep goes all the way here, and he has a very short tendon. Now, think about how the bicep connects. It connects in here. If you have a long muscle belly, you'll have a shorter tendon. But if you have short muscle bellies, and I'm gonna use an example. Kai Green has very short bicep muscle bellies. His tendon's going to be longer connecting in here because the belly is a lot shorter. Now, there are individuals, and it actually happens, I believe Chris Elkins is like this. Yeah, Chris Elkins is like this, who have very long muscle bellies and small wrist girth. Now, if you have longer muscle bellies, Casey did state in his book that you can still get close to those numbers given if you have longer muscle bellies. Now, it's kind of hard to test with legs and muscles like that, but remember that it doesn't only come down to wrist and ankle girth, it also comes down to potentially how long your muscle bellies are. Now, I want to talk about something real quick that's glaring on this sheet, and if you're looking at it, you're probably saying, what the heck is going on? There's a guy named Josh Gilliam on this sheet. Josh has wrists 10% above the average and ankles 12% above the average person for his height. Josh is 5'5". Now, I want you to look at Josh's information and compare that to that of Vernon Williams, also 5'5", also extremely gifted, and Jeff Nippard, also 5'5", also extremely gifted. Jeff Nippard on stage is around 150, Vernon's 160, Josh Gilliam is 180 on stage. Now, if you were to just look at Josh and maybe look at a picture on Instagram, most people would say, oh, there's no way that guy's natty. But when you look deeper at the individual, he has long muscle bellies, he has Mammuthian-sized joints, okay? And he has great genetics for muscle building. He has everything needed to build a disgustingly large physique. So, this is why I'm saying don't think black and white. Before you say things and look at just how much someone weighs and what they look like, maybe see if you can get a little bit more data on them. Now, Jeff and Vernon also have very large joints, and that's why they are fantastic bodybuilders, and they haven't even hit their peak genetic potential. That's something to really think about here. So I'm going to use myself as an example right now. I have very large ankles, and you can tell by that on the sheet, but I have very small wrists, which is why I am a slight hard gainer when it comes to my upper body. But because I do have fairly long muscle bellies, like I've mentioned before, I can make up for this over time, and I do have good genetics for muscle building. So when you're looking at this data, I really want you to look at everything. Look at how long the individual's been lifting, how long they've been doing other activity. Look at, if they have below average wrist or ankles, and just take a look at the data and compare it to other people on the sheet. Look at pictures of other people on the sheet so you can see why they have the physiques that they have with the amount of time that they've been training. Now, real quick, on the table underneath the current natural bodybuilders, I have drug-free pros from the past. I also have links to where I got some of the data in terms of their height, wrist, and ankle girth, and I got some of the data from Casey Butt's book. What needs to be mentioned here is that this data is not reliable, okay? It's reliable to an extent, okay? Because these are self-proclaimed data, but for example, for the wrist and ankle girth and the height girth that I got it from the 1956 Mr. America contest where a lot of these individuals competed. Now, there was one person, or I don't know if it was one person or if it was the competitors themselves that took these measurements, but these measurements could be really off. They could be over-exaggerated. I just wanted this here to kind of give us an idea of what these people looked like back then, and also I've linked up their pictures on Google just so you can see what these drug-free bodybuilder world champions from the past looked like. Something I should have measured at the beginning of this video, did I just say something I should have measured? Something I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video is that if you want to take accurate measurements, you should buy Myotape. It's on Amazon.com, it's right here. It's the most accurate way to take measurements. Now guys, I want you to let me know what you thought about this. I want you to comment below about this video. Let me know if you're looking at the sheet, if you have any questions about how I got to certain numbers or what I did, let me know. I'll be glad to answer it. If you have any suggestions for me, also let me know, because like I said, I want to get more data on more natural bodybuilders that are natural and put them in the sheet just so you can have a better idea of what's attainable naturally. I really think that there's a weakness within the natural bodybuilding community in the fact that people don't know who a lot of natural bodybuilders are. We all see the NPC athletes, we all see the guys on drugs, but we don't see the guys that look really great that have attained something naturally. So guys, I'm going to conclude this video here. Like I said, comment down below, like the video. When I say share this video, seriously, share this video. I'm going to post it on Facebook too. I want you to share this because a lot of people need to see this information. Don't lurk. Lurkers are people who watch these videos and don't say a single word, so don't be one of those people. Links to my social media down below. Find me on Snapchat, ask me some questions on Snapchat. I am there all the time. This is Nsima the Centaur Yang from Break the Bar. Let's cut this natty not natty bullshit, and I will talk to you all very soon.